And yeah.
All right. Our text will be from Nehemiah chapter 1.
All right, come on.
And I want to open up this morning by beginning with a personal story. True story that had occurred to me back in December of 2005. It was a normal Sunday morning, going to church. I wore my best tie, walked in the door, worshipped as you normally would worship, right? Gave you hugs, heard your sermon. Everything is the same. Everything is normal. Afterwards, we have a meeting. What are we going to do for the following year as a church? Interesting thing happened that night was that that's the last time that our church was ever one. We had a split that night. It was at that night that our church of 86 was now 19.
Wow.
And even as I tell you right now, it's a challenging story. You come out of such a meeting full of confusion, anger, trouble. Where do you go from this? What do you do with such circumstances? Everything you were securing, everything that you trusted is dismantled. How do you pick yourself up from such a circumstances? Where do we go from here? What do we do? How do I pull this together? The questions go on and on and on, but no answers. Perhaps you've been there one time or another in your own life. Imagine Nehemiah as he asked the question, how are the exiles? How are they doing? Only to hear that they are disgraced. Only to hear that they are in trouble. And that the city of Jerusalem is destroyed. The walls are torn down. Nehemiah, as many of us who went through that night, wept, mourned, fasted. It says he did it for 3 days.
Wow.
You know, I feel like I can connect with Nehemiah. During those 3 days, what was going through his mind? But Nehemiah, I believe, when you read his prayer, gives us 3 keys, or 4 keys, that we can embrace to get over such challenging times. You know, in verse 5, it says, God, you are awesome. And he says that you have a covenant of love. You know, one of the challenges you face when you go through such challenging situations is to remember that God still loves you.
Right? Yeah.
That he still loves this church.
Yeah.
Because the questions go on, and the doubts go on. Is this still part of God's kingdom?
Right.
Am I still part of God's kingdom? But yet, Nehemiah, as he searched his soul, he remembered God's covenant of love. The famous script, the famous verse that we all know very well, right? John 3:16. God so loved the world that he gave us his own son. It's far from your mind. And the challenges that we have to work, the things that we have to fight for, is to remember that his son, he gave him up for us. And a God that is willing to give up his one and only son like that will always love you. And to embrace and to hold on to such things during those times. That God is awesome. That this circumstance which we might look and say, hey, this is a defeat and Satan has won. To remember that God is awesome.
Right.
And no such circumstances keeps God down. To remember such things. Number 2, he confessed his sins and the sins of his countrymen. Confession of sin. You know, why did we split? Man, there was sin in the room. We no longer were united. We no longer were one. We were operating not as a unit. When I look back. And you think it was maybe just that night? No. as you sit and you reflect and you think, you see the patterns of sin that permeated throughout the church, the disunity that existed that whole entire year.
Okay.